enslaved you into bondage, who exploit you, who are just slapping you around, pushing you around. People who don't care about who you are or what God has called you to be, but people who only care about themselves being exalted, and they'll do whatever it takes to be exalted. They'll walk all over you. They'll push you down. They'll use you. They'll abuse you. They'll mistreat you, and they'll talk bad about you, and they'll do anything just to lift themselves up. And the Apostle Paul says, I am not like that. I have not done that. He said, these men have propped themselves up to be something great, to be greater than me, to be greater than the men and the women of God who go out day in and day out and sacrifice their lives. These men make themselves out to be just like that, but they're not. They are liars. They are deceivers. And in verse 23, he says, are they servants of Christ? I am out of my mind to talk like this. Apostle Paul says, this is not my character, but I've got to be honest, and I've got to be open, and I've got to be real with you. I am more of a servant than they are. I have worked harder. I've been in prison more often. I've been flogged more severely, and I've been exposed to death again and again. Every day, the Apostle Paul lays his life on the line so that the people of God can hear his word and respond and receive Jesus Christ. He's been flogged. He's been beaten. He's been in jail. He's been shipwrecked. He's been stoned and left for dead. He's spent days and nights in the open sea. Wherever he goes, he's in danger. In the city, on the sea, no matter where he goes in the country, he's in danger. He's in danger from the people who are supposed to be his brothers. He's in danger from the people who are, from the Jews, from the Gentiles, from those who are supposed to be friends in the church. He's in danger everywhere he goes. In verse 27, he says, I have labored and toiled. I've gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst. I've gone without food. I've been cold. I've been naked. He says, I go through day in and day out. I go without sleep for you. I go without food for you. I go thirsty for you because I love you. And not only that, in verse 28, he says, besides everything else, every day I'm concerned about the church. Every day I'm concerned that people will come in and do what they're doing in the church of Corinthian. Every day I'm concerned that after I leave a place where I've sweat, where I've bled, where I've cried, where I've stayed up all night and labored with the saints to get them to a place where they believe in God, where they trust God, where they know Christ and the power of his resurrection, and God sends me on my way, I look back and I worry that Satan will come in and creep in to destroy the house that God has built. And I'm concerned about the churches every day. And he says, even though I am weak, I do not feel weak. Even though I suffer, I realize that I suffer for a cause that is greater than myself. The Apostle Paul does not have the power to do what he's doing on his own. Nobody has the power to go without food and water and sleep day in and day out, to be in prison, to be beaten, to be bashed down, to be stoned and left for dead. Nobody can do that. But the only way you can do that is through God. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, capítulo 12, in verso 7, he says, to keep me from becoming conceited because of these surprisingly great revelations, there was given me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. He's saying, I know that God has given me great revelation. God has made me to understand things that most men don't see. God has taken me and taught me himself, that Jesus himself has taught the Apostle Paul, has taught him his word and everything. And he says, I could be puffed up. I could be conceited. I could be proud. I, if anybody, would have the reason to walk around and boast and to say how great I am. But so that I don't, in order for me to stay humble, God has allowed me to have a thorn in my flesh. The Bible doesn't tell us what that thorn is, but it's something that grieves Paul. It's something that it says that it's given him by Satan to torment him. In other words, he deals with it day in and day out. It's a constant struggle. And it's a struggle that's so great. In verse 8, he says, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me in verse 9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly in my weaknesses, so that by Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness, in insult, in hardship, in persecution, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. So the Apostle Paul says, I may not be in a position of fame like these false prophets are. I have not built myself up to be somebody great. I have not set myself on a pedestal. I have not tried to exalt myself. The only person that I've exalted when I've come to you and taught you is Jesus Christ. The only person that I've lifted up is Jesus Christ, and I am weak. I suffer. I have afflictions. I have tribulations. I go through just like you go through. But I'm able to do it by the grace of God. Because the grace of God, when I am weak, the grace of God is enough for me. Because when I am weak, He is made strong in me. Because when I am so tired, I don't have the power or the ability to go on. I don't have the ability to get up and do ministry because I'm so worn out. I'm hungry, I'm thirsted, I'm exhausted. But the reason that I can get up, the reason that I can continue to preach to you, the reason that I can still pray to you, even though that you have allowed yourselves to be led astray, the reason I can still pray for you, the reason that I still care enough to write this letter, the reason I'm still on my way to come see you and to correct what's going on is because the grace of God that works in my life. Because I don't have the strength to deal with this. I don't have the patience to continue to labor with people who have no respect for how much I sacrifice. He says, because when I was in Corinth, you didn't pay for any of my things. You didn't help me one bit. I went out and I worked during the day and I came to you at night and I preached until I couldn't preach anymore. I prayed with you until I couldn't pray with you anymore. I fasted more than any man should ever have to fast for a group of people. But I continue to do those things because the power of God in my life is greater than the weakness of the flesh in my body. The power of God in my life is what enables me. The power of God in my life is what enables me to still look at you as children, like I'm your father. I don't want anything from you. I just want you. I want you to know who God is. I want you to understand Christ and the power of His resurrection. I want you to understand, and I'm willing to give myself. In verse 15, he says, so I will very gladly spend for you everything I have and expend myself as well. If I love you more, will you love me less? He says, I will gladly give you everything that I have. You want my money? You can have my money. You want my time? You can have my time. You want my love? You can have my love. Everything I have, I've made it available to you. And I love you so much. Will you continue to love me less? Will you continue to talk about me? Will you continue to doubt me? Will you continue to follow men who teach you things that I didn't teach you? Will you continue to follow men who have led you so far away from God that you have been dishonorable to God? And not only that you have sinned, not only that you have fallen, but that you are unrepentant. You let yourself be led astray. And the Apostle Paul, he speaks harshly to them, but what he's telling them